welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hesser, back with another AFL round review. We have gone through 4 rounds/5, depending on, again, how you look at it, of the footy in the AFL season. We must talk footy, and joining me, a long awaited return, a very good friend of mine who I've been wanting to have on the podcast, but life sometimes will not always give you that luxury. Joining me again on the podcast from the Talking Hawks and the Soaring to New Heights podcast, a man that loves his Hawthorn Hawks, Mr. Tim Newman. Tim, great to see you again, sir.
Great to be back. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's always lovely to come on and talk footy with someone as passionate as yourself, Donny. So glad to be here, and it's been an interesting first month of footy.
Interesting may be the understatement when it comes to it, because I know so many people this entire season, because of Hurricane Alfred and making sure that Gold Coast and Essendon have to go, when are we going to play our game? So we won't go into that, because that's all I hear on so many of these shows is, well, the ladder is a little bit screwed up. Well, welcome to life. It happens. Okay. So let's hop right into it, sir. Round four has come. It has gone some interesting results. Let's just safe to say the footy media in Victoria are going to have a field day with some of these performances this weekend. Jump right into it. Thoughts on round four?
I think it's certainly starting to see a bit of a gulf between teams who are really competitive and who are going to be there, I guess, at the pointy end of the season, and teams that might be able to start booking their September holiday. And I know it's early as a Hawthorn supporter to say this because we were 0-5 last year. I think Brisbane were 0-3, 0-4, and
Mm-hmm.
they went on to win the flag. But when you look at some of the teams, like Carlton putting on 46 points in a full game, you look at Melbourne, 46 points in a full game, you go, "Ooh, not fantastic to watch." You got North Melbourne, who the week before had performed incredibly well, and then come out against your Swans and lose by 65 and just look deplorable. And then you've got teams like West Coast, unfortunately, who, it looks like they'll be languishing at the bottom for a while. And then you go the opposite end. You've got teams like Gold Coast and Adelaide who put on an absolute rip snorter of a game, 1 point difference. And you go, both those teams are probably going to be there when the whips are cracking at the end of the season. So there's some teams that are, I guess, are surprising, and some teams at the moment that, I guess are probably going to cop a bit of flack. I think Melbourne, Carlton, and probably Port Adelaide are the three in the firing line at the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, it's as soon as you think you got a team figured out, you have some of these performances, and then I know there's a lot of people at the start of the year that had Melbourne as a team that they're potentially in the flag hole, probably a finals team, and they're all probably looking, going, ripping that piece of paper up, because that is just not working out. But yeah, it was very interesting. I know there's some controversy that we can discuss when we get to the game that had that, but all in all, I think a good round of footy again. Are some of the blowouts a little disheartening because of some of the fan bases having to deal with it? Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. We go game by game. We have to go to it because we kept having a shove down our throats. Collingwood v Carlton, the great rivalry of footy. But man, one half of this rivalry did not show up. Collingwood Magpies get a 17-point win, 63-46, a dismal 46 points by Carlton, as you said in your breakdown. Man, if I'm a Carlton Blues supporter, I just don't know what to do, because right now, calling talk radio and complaining, saying you're going to burn up your membership card and tell the team to fire Ross, Voss, and everything like that. Collingwood gets it done. Was Collingwood impressive? Yes. Was Carlton not? Yes. In the long run, this is a microcosm of both teams right now. Collingwood starting to find form. Nick Dacos showing again why he is the ripper that he is, and Carlton showing again right now. They just seem to be like the headless chook, just randomly running around with no direction at all.
Yeah, it was very interesting to watch. I think if you put Harry Mackay back into that Carlton side, and at the moment he's facing some personal issues. I think if you put him in, it probably strengthens their forward line a bit, but they seem to be lacking a quality small forward. I think that's going to be the area that, you can have a Mackay and you can have a Kerno, but you need to have, someone really explosive at their feet to be able to make the most of those opportunities. And I don't think they have that at the moment. And if you look down back, I think Nick Newman is a player that Carlton are just missing massively, and they'll miss him for the
Mhm.
whole season because of his his injury that he had, but yeah, they just lack that, exquisite ball user from the back. And I think teams are starting to find out that if you can match Carlton in terms of that contested ball work through the middle, you can get them at either end of the ground.
Definitely for sure. And it's really crazy because they always had that one wood of contested footy out through the center, and it's not working now. And that's it just I think it just makes my Coach Voss's job even harder again. Is Harry Mackay going to come in and magically fix all this? No, I don't think he is. Honestly, I don't. He is not the fix. He may be a part of the remedy to help get to the fix, but I'm not sure that he's the fix. And that's the frustrating thing about this Carlton squad, because again, on paper, and again, I know on paper, this should be a finals team. This should be a team that should be competing for a premiership. And right now, that's just not the case. So let's jump to Friday night footy. Unfortunately, not exactly much less disappointing as the Cats again at home hold serve at the Cattery 85-46 over the Melbourne Demons. And again, another 46-point performance by a team on prime time football. I know that this fixture is set early in the year, but right now, if I'm the fixture setter, I'm going, what were we thinking?
I think if you, yeah, I think watching a game, I mean, it's always interesting watching a game at Kardinia Park because
Hmm.
the ground is completely different. Teams don't get the opportunity to train there, to play there. The Cats are able to get that extra back. They always seem to play with a seventh defender, and Melbourne weren't able to match them in terms of what they were doing strategically and also structurally. And that Melbourne forward line, similar to Carlton's at the moment, just does not look like it's going anywhere near as well as it needs to be a premiership contender. And with Jake Lever out, and I think he's out for the next 8 weeks, 8 to 12 weeks with his
Hmm.
his ankle injury. Stephen May at the moment, Harrison Petty, they're doing the best that they can. But what was once, Melbourne's one wood in terms of their defense at the moment just looks incredibly leaky.
Yeah, and it's also not helping too that they're one wood that crash and bash footy through the center is not working, and then unfortunately those crash and bash players are, shall we say, less than defensively sound, and that's not helping because it's leaving their defense out to dry because their their midfielders and their forwards are so offensively focused that they're not playing good. They're not getting on the defensive side of the footy. There's no hunt. Like I hate using David King's words hunt, but because he loves to say the word hunting the footy, which I find fascinating. But they don't. They just don't seem to. They don't seem to want to. When the ball gets turned over, they don't want to pull up their bootstraps, make the tackle, and get the footy back. They kind of want somebody else to do it. Like that's literally kind of the way it comes out. I agree with you. I mean, the Cats they take home field advantage to the extreme, just because the skinny ground they are literally built for that ground. That's why I say build for your home field and then try to find ways to steal a few games on the road. I'm not a Cats fan, but I say let the Cats play 11 home games at Kardinia Park. I understand. It's not the biggest stadium in the world. I get it. But that's what the Cats wanted. If they wanted a bigger stadium, they would have built a bigger stadium. If they wanted that huge advantage, go ahead. Again, it's one of the many where the fixture is never going to be perfect. It's never going to be an advantage for some teams. So, but I really would love to see the Cats get more home games down at Kardinia Park, just because I think some of these teams need to have that challenge of going down there. Now, will the Collingwoods, the Essendons, some of the bigger clubs of Melbourne go down there? Probably not, but we'll have to see. So, I don't have an opinion on that, do I? Let's jump to it. Game of the round for sure, because everybody was talking about this game. Not only because of the finish, but because this was a ripping game of football as the Gold Coast Suns survive a scare by the Adelaide Crows, 91-90, an absolute ripping game of footy. Let's talk about the footy first, then we'll get to the controversy and I know the grievance that some in this game will have. A ripping game of football again. The Suns showing why all that talent, when it grows up, could be eventually and maybe just maybe Dimma has found the secret sauce to pull this team to be what I think a lot of people thought they could be.
I think adding in Daniel Rioli and also adding in John Noble
Noble, yep.
has made a massive difference because the speed that they now have coming out of that back half is something that they were missing. And if you go through and have a look, like Jed Walter kicks three, young
Hmm.
kid, second season. Ben Long was at St Kilda, now playing a really great defensive role in terms of the forward line. You got Ben King kicking two, you got Will Graham kicking two. So you got four players kicking doubles. And then I think there was like another four or five that kick singles. And it's their potency in attack is something that I guess teams always feared Gold Coast might be able to put together if they could actually get it together. And from watching what we've been able to see, and I know for Gold Coast it's only 3 rounds in because they haven't played that extra game so far, but watching them and what they've been able to achieve, they're going to be a real threat to the competition. And then conversely, you go to the other side and you get 12 goals kicked between the big three. The
Hmm.
three-headed monster they talk about in terms of Thilthorpe, Walker, and Fogarty kick 12 between them. And that maybe defensively it could be Gold Coast's Achilles heel going forward because Charlie Ballard's out with his ACL injury. So maybe that might be an area that teams might think, yeah, we might be able to get them. But it was an enthralling contest to watch. And I think, as I said, both of those teams are going to be there at the pointy end of the season.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. I know with both again, it's early in the year. Have they faced the cream of the crop yet in the league? No. So again, I'm still going to kind of is Gold Coast a finals team if they play this way and stay healthy? Yes. If they start getting injuries or they start reverting back to the old Gold Coast Suns a little bit, which is a little bit of me football, then I'm a little worried. But again, it's still very, very early again. They've played 4 games. They've looked impressive. Same thing with the Crows. 4 games. They've looked impressive. Yes, they lose this one, but legitimately they were in this to the end. And let's discuss it. Let's get it over with. The controversial non-mark, non-free kick, all that. Again, the Crows fans are really, really, really feeling aggrieved, and I get it, completely get it. Trust me, as a Swans fan, I know the wrath of the Crows fans after post gate, shall we say? Um, do they have a right to feel aggrieved? Absolutely, but I'm also one of those where this game is close, okay? If the game is close, you're letting the umpires have that ability to do that. And again, I'm not trying to victim blame here, okay? But when the game is close, this has an opportunity to happen. If you really go through the game with a fine-tooth comb, how many mistakes were there? We don't know because I don't know if anybody's got the time to sit there and go through every single free kick called. Was it correct? Was it wrong? I'm kind of getting tired of the AFL coming out and going, well, we got this wrong. Congratulations. Now what? Like, I get it. I get it. You're trying to kind of the olive branch or the rose to the aggrieved lover. But you're not doing anything. You really aren't because it's not like you're going, "Oh, hey Adelaide, we're going to give you 2 points because you feel we screwed you." Okay. They're not going to do that. So literally it's like lipstick on a pig. It does nothing except further prove or further push for some of these fans this thing that we've got an issue with you. So this is going to happen. We're going to apologize, but it's only for, like I said, it's the lipstick on a pig. It doesn't really do anything. It's not attractive. It brings nothing to it. So do I get it? Why the AFL came out? Yes, but there's also several missed opportunities where they earlier in the game. You didn't say anything about those. It's only because people feel that this cost Adelaide the game. It's like everybody says, well, it cost Adelaide the finals post gate. No, it didn't. It cost them the opportunity because we don't know if Keys' kick gets called a goal. What if Sydney comes and kicks a goal in the next 30 seconds? We don't know that. We don't know. Would Sydney have played Tommy Papley in the game against Melbourne and actually beat Melbourne? Because mathematically, what most people forget, Sydney, all they needed to do was beat Melbourne, and they were in, and Adelaide was out. It's the one thing that grieves me a little bit with the narrative that they say with that game is it cost them the finals. No, it cost them the opportunity for the finals. You can't guarantee it because we don't know, because we had that taken from us. Do I understand the grievance? Absolutely. It's the same thing here. Well, it cost us the game. No, it's not. You can't guarantee me. What if Rankin pulls it and kicks it out on the full? You still lose. Or what if he kicks it for a behind? Guess what? We have a draw. So there's some jumping the shark a little bit with this. Now, and you're just real quickly, we'll go to you. Your thoughts on this because again, for me personally, I get it. I get the grievance. I don't get the AFL apologizing because really it does nothing. And I'm kind of tired of the jumping to conclusions with how people kind of see what would have happened.
I think the AFL apologises to save face. I think that's the reason or the
Oh
logic
yeah.
behind it, because by doing it, it makes teams think, oh, well, we can be less aggrieved. As you said, there's no actual outcome that comes from it because you can't get anything from it. That's just not what happens,
Hmm.
unfortunately. But I think if you go through and there were moments earlier in the game, and as you said, it's 1 point difference, and unfortunately for Adelaide, they don't get the points. Will it be something that possibly drives them for the rest of the season? Absolutely, because they'll sit there and think we've got something to prove, we've got something to play for, and you go wonderful. And if it gets to the end of the season and they miss out by a point or 2 points or however many points, you sit there and you go, well, you can say that it was cost by a game that happened in round four, or you can look at it and say what happened over the next 20 weeks,
Hmm.
because there's more than enough time to correct that error that's occurred by the AFL.
Yeah. No, completely agree. It'll be interesting. Like I said, it's the talk of all the footy media, which again, it didn't surprise me. And again, and everybody's like, "Was it a mock to you? Was it a free kick?" I'm like, "Does it really matter? It wasn't called either way. It doesn't really matter." I don't really do I don't really do the what ifs or what do you thinks because none of us have umpiring credentials, so we don't know. And even umpires, it's one of the things that I find interesting, especially maybe as an American, is most of our sports over here, everything's pretty black and white when it comes to the umpiring. Legitimately, there's so much gray in the interpretations. It literally, as they said, it's an interpretation by the umpire. So what you would consider a mark, the guy down the street that's the umpire for an AFL may have something a little bit different or a lot different. So it's like I get it, but it doesn't really help. Like I get it's the discussion. It'll be talk radio fodder for until gather around this week. But man, it's just like every single one. Was it a mock? What do you think it is? Who cares? Like I know they have to have talk radio stuff. I'm not looking forward to some of my podcasts in the next day or so because that's all they're going to be talking. That's one of the big things they're going to be talking about. And I know we'll get some of the why, how crap was Carlton, how crap was North, how crap was Melbourne. I get it, but it's just it was a little annoying over the last 24 hours. Just so much about what do you think was the right call, and it's like doesn't really matter because that's not the way it was called. So we will move on. Sorry, soapbox back into the corner. We'll move up. We'll move on to the MCG as the Richmond Tigers give a nice little push to the Brisbane Lions, but the Lions show why they are one of the best teams in the competition. A huge 118-90 win over the Richmond Tigers. And man, the Lions just continue to roll on. And another Ashcroft worldie in this game. Have to admit, when he first took that shot, I was like, what is he doing? Like he almost looked like a soccer centering ball, and the damn thing found the way through the center sticks.
Yeah, he's a freak. I think, you look at both the Ashcroft boys, and
Hmm.
that's father son is one of those beautiful things when you watch it in the AFL, especially when it's happening
For
to
your
your
team.
side. When it's not happening to your side, it's not as good. I mean, you look at poor old St Kilda. I think Andrew, their president, came out, Andrew Bassett, and was saying that, it's not fair. It's not fair, the academies and the father son. And then you watch
I just
The
look at him
Brisbane
and go
Lions.
tell Revolt and Montagna and Harvey and some of your greats to start making babies, dang it. That's what's
I
gonna
think they
change.
showed it. I think they showed a photo. It must have been at the Geelong game. I think it was Lenny Hayes, Lee Montagna, and Nick Rewalt. They're three boys. We're all about the same age, about sort of that 11
Mhm.
age, all together. And you go, well, if you're a St Kilda supporter, then you might get your opportunity of an
You hate saying
Ashcroft.
wait 8 years, but who knows? I mean, again, I get it, but I agree with you. It's kind of the same, like I said, as a person that has a team that has the academy issue. It's like one of the things that frustrates me is it's like, well, you have the father son, which really benefits a lot of Victorian teams just because of the fact you've got so many teams for so many years and so many players. It's so much easier to do that. So it's a rather frustrating thing again. The Ashcroft brothers are absolutely magnificent. Like I said, it was a fantastic performance by both. This Lions team is built very, very well. I know that it's going to be interesting to see how they go injury wise. Richmond again. Richmond just keep being that pesky side. They only had that one absolute drubbing against Adelaide, but they're fighting. They're competing, which I gotta give Ooze that because this very easily could have just been a white flag season. He just throws the kids out there and go, do your best, boys, do your best. He's putting some mongrel into them, and I like it. They're getting after it, and I enjoy watching that, and it's been a lot of fun. I think they're going to nip somebody again before the end of the year. I have that feeling. What they did against Carleton was inspiring, and I think kind of gave the group some confidence. They've ran into a few brick walls, but they're still competing. I'm gonna say it now. Richmond's not done. I think Richmond's going to get another at least one more win this year. Somebody's going to take them lightly, and they're going to fully have a lot of fun doing it.
I think the thing with Richmond, it's youthful exuberance. You throw in these young kids, Luke Trainer, you throw in your Sam Lawlers, and you've got your Steely Greens, and
Hmm.
all these young kids in there at the moment, and they don't know any better. They
Hmm.
they don't know of a losing culture.
Yeah.
So yes, you've got some of these, I guess, more experienced blokes who've been there and know that maybe it's not as green and as wonderful as it could be. But you throw these young kids in, and youthful exuberance is one of those things. Like you spoke about, they get the win against Carlton. They're plucky on Saturday afternoon against Brisbane, which I will say costs. I've got a group of school teachers where we do a multi each week, and it cost us a bit of a windfall because I had Brisbane 40 plus. I was sure of it. That was our big one, and that was the only leg that didn't get up. But the pluckiness of the Tigers, it was wonderful to see because if you're a Richmond supporter, at least you go to the games with,
Hmm.
yes, there'll be some blowouts throughout the season, but you go with these green shoots in mind and you're
Hmm.
watching Layla and you're watching Trainer and you're watching these young kids and you're going, what are they going to be with 20, 30, 40, 50 games under their
Yep.
belt? And
Yep.
that's what we did as Hawthorn supporters for, 2 or 3 seasons ago, where we were watching those young kids and
Yep.
waiting to see it. And I think, for Richmond supporters,
Hodge Franklin, that group, Ruffy,
yeah,
that group kind of grew together. Yeah, I agree. The green shoots are there, and Blight is another one that I think has been a nice addition to the youngsters. Trainer, I think is another one. There's a lot of things, and they haven't even seen Smiley. Smiley, I think it is. He hasn't even had a chance to get a game, and he's a big body midfielder. He's going to be fun to watch when he plays. So I agree. The green shoots are everywhere. It's going to be fun to watch this again. Brisbane's just class. I mean, Coach Fagan has got these boys up and about. Again, we'll have to see how can they maintain this. The slow starts, they remind me a little bit of Sydney last year. The slow starts have hurt them. They didn't get a slow start in this one, which was better. But again, we kind of look at the opponent. But can Brisbane right that ship? Because you can only go so many times going down before it still slowly starts to wear on you. I will do this normally. I'm chuffed when my team wins, but I will do this. I'm going to wrap the next two games together because it's pretty much the same thing. One good team, one bad team. Huge blowouts. Sydney beating North Melbourne by 65, 117-52. And then their rivals on the other side of Sydney, the Greater Western Sydney Giants, smashing the West Coast Eagles 132-51. Plain and simply, we can do both of these games together quite simply because they were both the same. One team was very good, one team was not. Both the teams from Sydney playing very good football at the same time. Both impressive wins despite the opponents that they faced.
I think you look at the Swans and you can see the caliber of players that they have. And yes, they were missing Tom Papley, but they seem to cruise through the game. I don't think they really got out of second or third gear. Same as the Giants. I was watching the Giants game on Sunday afternoon, and they got up by 50 points, and you thought they could end up winning this by 150, and they just went into cruise control because they could. I think West Coast are in a world of pain, but I think the biggest one or the biggest talking point out of these four teams is not how good are the Giants and how good are Sydney, because we know that they're going to be at the pointy end, and it's not how bad West Coast is. I think it's how North Melbourne is still so inconsistent,
Mhm,
because you look at the caliber of players on their list, and these type of games where they're losing by 60 points or more, they should be almost eradicated by now.
mhm,
Like the week before, they played against Adelaide, and I think the scoreline was about 38 points at the end of the game, 36, 38 points, somewhere around there. And
mhm,
the scoreline probably flattered the Kangaroos. And I think they went into to Saturday night. I know from speaking to you off air and speaking to other Sydney Swan supporters, they were a bit nervous about the game, because you look at the caliber of North's list and all these young kids, and they should be hitting their straps and hitting their form and doing really, really well. And yeah, I think if you're a North Melbourne supporter, you probably watched on Saturday night and thought, we took one step forward a couple of weeks ago, and we've probably taken two pretty big steps backwards over the past fortnight.
mhm. No, 100%. I had a couple of North fans, like as I said off mic, I was talking to a North fan who was at the game and he was not happy with the effort and performance. And again, I said it on last week's podcast. I was terrified of this game, absolutely terrified, because I knew what North has. And I mean, former Swan Luke Parker, who was absolutely fantastic in this game, legitimately. I was like, this is the reason why I didn't want to lose him. But I knew that there's young midfielders that the Swans wanted to get in. It was kind of the sacrifice that the Swans had to make. Young Jacob Castanti, who never got a game in the Swans, showed a little bit of he had a little bit of mongrel in that one. I know him and Nick Blakey had a little bit of a argy bargy there in the center, and I know he got Sam Wicks one time, and it was great. It was great as a Swan supporter, and I think the talk coming out of the game on the Swan side was Riley Weiss, the 24-year-old middle overage recruit out of Werribee, who absolutely, I mean, he is Nick Blakey 2.0, which is kind of scary to think that we have another Nick Blakey on the same team, and a left footer, again, another one of those wiry runners, super quick, but just he has these weird ways of kicking the ball, but he finds his target, which is kind of crazy to think that this is. In fact, somebody even pointed out that the trade for Luke Parker and Jacob Castanti resulted in the pick that was used for Riley Bice. So it was this weird little round the circle moment that it was like the guy that they traded Luke Parker and Jacob Castanti for, the pick that they traded for, that was Riley Bice. And it's another Kinnear Beatson gem, another one of those that Kinnear Beatson. A lot of people when he got drafted, Swan supporters were like, "Who is this guy?" Like, and I had seen some of him or a lot of him through Werribee, and had been impressed with that Werribee team. Man, they were put together so well. Again, a non-connected team wins the premiership in the VFL, which is mostly just a reserves competition for the most part. So to see this young man get his opportunity at 24 and to absolutely grab it by the you know what and absolutely take it was fantastic. And again, I know a lot of people are pointing this out. There's 8 players that played in this game that were not part of the grand final team. Sydney is not at full strength. Cal Mills is still out. Papley went down with a cracked heel. He's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Logan McDonald isn't in the team. Lewis Milliken's not in the team. Robbie Fox, Harry Cunningham. There's several that were in last year's grand final that were not in this. For them to get the win and impressively was inspiring for Swans fans, but very disheartening for North because again, they brought in veteran leadership, Caleb Daniel, Luke Parker. Um, oh gosh, now I'm totally forgetting the
Darling.
forward, Darling. Yep. you were hoping to see the progression that the veteran leadership would teach the youngsters consistency and that mongrel and everything. And again, I know Wardlow's not playing. Sheasel right now, Sheasel just seems lost. It seems like that Clarko is moving him, but he's just not found consistency in any of the positions that he's at. I kind of just want him to put him somewhere and leave him, let him marinate in that spot and let him figure out his game in that particular place. The funny thing about the GWS one is the fact that I know the GWS account, which is I would say hilarious at times, had the fact that Hogan had, I think his first seven disposals were first six. Yeah, first six disposals were all goals. Like he was 6 for 6 kicking on goal. It's only had six disposals. And then when like the first time that he missed, they made like a big deal. It was like the huge like eight exclamations like, oh, the streak is over. And he goes for nine in this game. And again, like I know out west, it's going to be the talk is what's wrong. And I feel bad for McCoulter because he's literally on a ship that he's having so much trouble getting focused because this is a combination of horrible leadership. I know the whole Oscar Allen drama, and I will stay away from the drama part of that. I know as a Hawks fan, you're probably gleaming with the possibility of Oscar Allen potentially joining Hawthorne, but I'll say this it just seems like they're rudderless. There's very little leadership on the ground because the two leaders that are on the ground right now just keep mucking up. Oscar Allen mucks up by meeting and having a way for it to be found out by the public. So now he's got to make an apology, which was cringeworthy at best. Do I think that he has to pull his head in and realize that you can't do something so obvious as a coffee shop? Do it on Zoom, dude. Come on. Like that's I'm gonna put that more on the player than the coach. I mean, the coach has nothing to there's nothing negative because his fans are gonna love that he's aggressive. He wants the player. But you're the captain of the team. You have to be a little bit sneakier than that. A little bit. And then Liam Duggan right now, he's a co-captain, but right now he's again running around like a headless chook. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's constantly out of position. And it's just really hurting this Eagles side. This is going to be another long season out west, and more and more fodder for the people that are like Harley Reid. When's he coming back to Victoria, and who's he going to go to? And I think that's the hard part for me because it becomes very distracting. Not that they aren't distracted enough, but it's very distracting as a footy fan because I'm really sick and tired of the kid's only in the second year, but they're already talking about him changing clubs and going somewhere else. So,
Yeah, I think he's going to be a big watch. I think when you've got someone like Harley Reid on your books, and there was all the conjecture and talk before he got picked up that he won't go. You know, that West Coast won't pick him. He doesn't want to move over there. Obviously, he's gone over there now. He's got a 3-year contract. If you're West Coast, you probably look at can you cash him in this year? Because if you can cash in this year, you're probably going to get a better dividend and a better return than if you cash in next year. Because out of contract, what's your one play? Oh, we'll send you to the preseason draft.
well, I,
Yes, it's happened before for star players, but teams are very reluctant to do it because you actually miss out, I guess, on getting fair compensation or
mhm,
some type of compensation. So I think if he's going to move, this year's probably the one. And Oscar Allen, I feel sorry for him. If you've got that type of midfield kicking the ball in as a forward, there's not much you can do all day.
mhm,
And he went and met up with an ex-coach who he's obviously kept in touch with throughout. Was it publicised? It wasn't meant to be.
mhm.
Clearly, it has become publicised. He gets sent out in front of the media, where you've got John Worsfold standing next to him. It looked, pretty ordinary. And I think the discussion from West Coast before that press conference was, no, no, we've got no issue with what's happened. It's all good. It's all fine. And then it's gone from it's all good and it's all fine to, well, actually, we had a meeting with our co-captain, and now we're going to get him to front the media, and he's going to talk about how upsetting and hurtful this whole situation's been. And I just think it was handled incredibly poorly.
Somebody in the footy media said it looked like a hostage video. And I hate saying that. I really do, but it did. Like, it was so uncomfortable to watch just because it's like you can tell he's remorseful. He didn't want it to get out, but it did. And now he has no idea how to kind of put the cat back into the bag or put Jack back into the box. And it's just incredibly painful to watch this because the kid is being a little bit, the club's kind of let the kid lay out to dry. And again, I get a little bit why the club can feel aggrieved because this is their captain. This is somebody that is one of their best players. I know they don't want to lose him, but he's actively searching for a new home. So I get it, but I don't really think that was the best way of handling it. And again, we'll have to see, does Oscar Allen's form change or does he regress? I know David King again was the prototypical, let's take a forward, let's throw him back. What's that going to do? What's that really going to do? So I don't know, but it was very that whole thing was just a giant cluster. You know what? We'll move on. So out of the Adelaide Oval, were an interest in a cracking game of football, but a surprise and a little bit of a shocker as the Saints go on the road at Adelaide Oval and get a huge 17-point win over the Port Adelaide Power, 89-72. Naziah Wanganeen Millera. I'm going to continue to say this guy's name because I keep seeing this young man have absolute ripping games of football, incredibly good by foot, showing why honestly, if this kid is not at least in the squad, if not on the All Australian, it's going to be a travesty because this kid is absolutely fantastic. One of the main reasons why this Saints team has been successful over the last two rounds.
I think he's performed incredibly well, but I think there's been a few of those
Mhm.
players at St Kilda who've really stood up. Max Hall, who was on the Box Hill list, picked up in the mid-season draft. You watch him playing, and he's playing with a lot of spirit, a lot of endeavour. Liam Stocker comes in, doing a tremendous job as a defender, and I think Ross Lyon is just he's got them buying in. All the talk was that St Kilda, you look at their list, bottom four, bottom four, bottom four, and you watch the way they're playing at the moment. They're sort of just holding on. You know, they get out to a good lead, and then it's about holding on for dear life. They did it against Geelong. They did it again against Port Adelaide while they were on the road, and you knock up some of those wins, and then you get back a few of these injured players that the Saints have, and who knows, they might be there, pushing around that sort of top eight position when finals time is right around the corner.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. And again, now the question will now in prototypically in usual fashion is when you have a coach in waiting or a secession plan that when the team isn't playing well, the first thing that they go to is are they going to fast track it? Is Josh Carr going to take over? Is Hinckley going to get sacked? Is Hinckley going to resign and step down? I'm already tired of it, and we're four freaking rounds through the season. It's very, very every time Port loses, somebody in the media brings it up, and I'm just like, just stop. Port are stubborn as a Kashi as is not going to jump to any conclusion. In fact, he's actually probably going to hold on to the rein tighter because of that. So, like, I'm tired already of this. Stop. Hinkley's going nowhere. Hinkley's going to get through the entire season. Doesn't matter. Even if this team doesn't win a game the rest of the season, Hinkley's going to see it to round 24. Stop, media. Just stop. It's not happening. Okay. It's not. Kashi, as erratic as he can be at times, the more you tell him to do something, the more he's not. That's my honest to God truth on this. Hinkley is going to get through the entire season. Josh Carr will take over next year. So that's my one pet peeve that I have with the AFL media is that they do this all the time. If there is a secession plan, man, do they jump to a lot of conclusions. They jump the shark a lot. But Saints impressive. Port, not so much. Again, their midfield's just very annoying right now because Horn Francis has an absolute belter. The rest, not so much, unfortunately.
Yeah, Horn Francis played incredibly well on the weekend, and you just see him trying to will his team across the line. They get back Zach Butters, who'll probably be better for the run. He was probably short of match fitness. Came in, he looked all right. I think he'll be better for the run. It's going to be interesting, I guess, with Port Adelaide because losing Dan Houston, I think, has had a huge effect on just the transition and the way they're able to get that ball going in attack. And the amount of times you see Houston, kicking a long bomb from 50, 55, 60 on the run. It was something that I guess helped that team stand apart from what they've been able to achieve. And yeah, I think you look at the succession plan, as you said, Port Adelaide are very stubborn. So, there's a lot of talk. And if you ever jump on Big Footy, there's a great read. I think they're up to about the 25th iteration of Sack Ken Hinkley. And it's well
25th. I'm
worth a
surprised it's not 52 or more.
oh, it's well worth a read. I can tell you that much. It's because I think if you're a Port Adelaide supporter, they look at it and they go, he's been there for how many years, and we've got nothing from it. A couple of prelim finals, but no grand final victories. But yeah, it'll be interesting, I guess, to see how it all plays out over the course of the next 20 rounds for Port
Yeah,
Adelaide.
just I'm already tired of it. Like I said, we're only 4 or 5 rounds into the season. It's already annoying that I've heard it every time they've lost. Somebody in the media brings it up, and it's already worn on me already. I think that's the most frustrating part about it. So let's jump out Optus Stadium, end of the round as Fremantle get a 16-point win, and damn it, this Bulldogs team starting to tick me off because as soon as I think I've got them figured out, they pull this crap. A team that can't score puts up 97 points. Come on. Like I said it in my preview podcast. I said, I want to tip Fremantle because I think Fremantle's going to win because it's at Optus Stadium. But because I want to tip Fremantle, I'm going to tip the ball. I did. So frustrating because it's like this was the game like I said, I knew Fremantle could play better football. Like the Swans game just literally like the Swans just did enough to get it done. It was a much better Fremantle. Fremantle literally lost the game more than the Swans won it. I said that and I will continue to say it. The Doggies are a team that they've been plucky as you kind of said. They've won a couple of games they probably shouldn't have, but they did. And this was one of those that I thought Fremantle, not such good form. I know it's out west. Fremantle's been playing pretty good football despite some of the outs that they have, a little bit like Sydney, some big outs in some important places. But they've had Bailey Dale stepped up. Lobsterhead Rory Lobb has actually been pretty good down back. They've had performances. Frazier's stepped up and played really well. Sam Darcy is playing otherworldly at this point. Um, but man, it just didn't get it done. And Fremantle gets the win, but a little bit of a downer as it sounds like Luke Jackson could see some significant time on the bench with I think what could be a hamstring injury.
Yeah, I think it's been confirmed Jackson won't play this week. Sean Darcy played in the waffle in his return on the weekend, so I think he is that like for like replacement, so he'll probably come straight in for Fremantle. It was a great game to watch. I think
I
Fremantle
agree.
finally started to get that ball movement that they talked about over the preseason, and Justin Longmuir kept saying over the preseason that, oh no, we're not showing our cards yet. We're keeping it all very close, and we don't
We're
want
in the
teams
ice
to
cream
see it.
section. We got to have vanilla.
That's it. And then the first few rounds, we saw nothing, I guess, from
We saw
Fremantle. There
vanilla.
was there
We
was
saw exactly what he told us he was going to give us.
yeah.
I'm
I
sorry.
do think that
That
no, no,
annoyed me.
it's true. I think the thing that was really interesting is I think Fremantle had 22 scoring shots, so 15 goals, seven. And if you look at how many times the ball went inside 50, they really made it count. And I think that's such a big thing for them because they didn't have, a huge number of inside 50s for the game. But when they got the ball in there, they made sure that I think they had 44, there you go, 44 inside 50s. So they went, 22 scoring shots from 44 inside 50s. So that's one to every two. And you go, that's if they can keep that up throughout the rest of the season. And granted, it's going to be a lot more difficult as the season goes on. But I just think there's so much that you'll be able to see from this Fremantle team.
Definitely for sure. For those that are watching the video, I have to chuckle a little bit.
It's
The
made.
fact this is how much dedication Tim has. He's recording this in his car and he keeps having to turn his dome light on.
My,
I
I got
love
the
it,
the
Tim.
two little ones are asleep in the house, so
No,
we
I
we uh
completely
we
get it.
we
I
got
love the
pushed out.
dedication. Love the dedication. That's the second time I look up and I go, "Where'd Tim go?" Oh, okay. It's his dome light on that. No, it's again Fremantle. Again, I know some people had him as flag contender. Some people had him top four. Uh, Honestly, on their but when Shy Bolton starts to show up the way he did, it's ominous for the rest of the competition if they find it, and if they find it. holy crap. But it was just the fact that Longmuir makes the point of pointing out that they sent something vanilla against the Indigenous All Stars, which again I totally kind of get, but I also kind of didn't because I'm like, everybody's going to know exactly what you're going to do within 4 rounds of the season. So I'm not really seeing where an extra round. I get it. But then the fact that he serves up the vanilla ice cream for the first 3 or 4 rounds, serving up exactly the same thing. I'm like, dude, you didn't you didn't change anything from exactly what you did in the Indigenous All Stars. So it was nice to kind of see a little bit of we've got a little bit of chocolate now in their particular ice cream. We're still going for the Neapolitan. We got to get the strawberry too. So it'll be fun. It'll be fun again. I Fremantle is one of those teams. I appreciate the squad that they put together. I think Longmuir's a heck of a coach. I think he's done quite a good job. It's just, again, this is a Fremantle team that continues to underperform compared to I think some of what the talent. Again, Hayden Young still to come back in, so there's still a few to come in that I think could really kickstart this team. So Fremantle's definitely a team I am going to keep an eye on. So that is all 8 games. Again, your beloved Hawks and Essendon had a nice seat on the couch and got to enjoy the footy. And now we jump to burning questions. I'm gonna have some fun with this one because um, we'll start off. I'm interested to hear this as a Hawk supporter. Can we now say the Gold Coast is legit?
I still think it's too early. I think watching them against Adelaide, it was great to see, and seeing Mac Andrew, playing with a lot of spirit, a lot of passion, even after the siren went with his little disagreement with Riley Thilthorpe, it was great value to watch. I think it will be when they have the Q clash against the Lions, when they take on the Giants, when
Mhm.
they play Hawthorn. Granted, the game against Hawthorn's in Darwin,
Mhm.
where if you're
Oh boy.
sensible enough, if you're sensible enough, you send up your VFL team because you're probably not going to get the points while you're playing up there. And I think it's in May, so it's probably going to be monsoon type weather that they're playing in. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. But I think it's not until they go up against that top echelon that we talk about that we're really going to see if Gold Coast has, the presence, the perseverance, and the resilience. Because over the course of the start of the season, they came up against a pretty, lifeless West Coast in round one. Then they went and took on Essendon, who once again in that game were pretty lifeless. And then, I just think there's going to be a bit from the Gold Coast over the next probably the next handful of games where we'll be able to say yes or no as to whether or not we think they're contenders. Personally, I think it's too early yet, but as I said, I can definitely see them sort of pushing around that top eight mark, which will be great for the franchise because that's something that they haven't been able to have in their whole existence.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I'm kind of the same with you. Maybe it's just because you just keep hearing it all the time. When is Gold Coast going to figure it out? When is Gold Coast going to figure it out? When are they going to get their first finals? When are they going to get the first season where they're not in the bottom 10? I'm fascinated by this because I agree with you. They faced the cream of the crop yet? No, they've only played 4 games, so I mean, it's really hard to say. Have they faced the world's most difficult teams? No, not really. Especially with Melbourne's form, the way they've been playing, we can't really say that. So I agree. It's when they face Hawthorn, it's when they face Brisbane, it's when they face GWS, it's when they face Fremantle, when they face Sydney, when they face what most people would consider the teams that are going to be fighting for finals. Then we'll know. Again, where it also depends on where they play it too is also because again, Gold Coast for some weird reason last year was incredible at home and crap on the road. So we'll have to see have they figured out so it's not a swings and roundabouts type of season. Are they legit? I'm with you. I'm not going to say yes yet, but they're on the precipice. It's Brisbane, GWS, they get a win over those teams, then I can say, yes, they're legit. Can we start discussing on can they do some things in finals? Because again, finals is a whole nother animal. The home and away season, you can be great during the home and away season and be absolute crap in the finals because it steps up a notch. I mean, it's just different. Finals are different. So we'll see. But are they close? Yes. Are they there? No. I agree. I will totally go with you on this one. So we are on the precipice, sir. Gather round. The The Magic Round ripoff of the NRL Gather Round in Adelaide is this particular weekend. So, as a Victorian, but as a footy fan yourself, are you up and about for for Gather Round, or is this just another gimmick for the AFL to spread around the wonders of footy?
I like it. I think it's great. The reason I like it is if you're a supporter and you get to go and experience it. Not only do you get to go and possibly watch other teams play, which you might get an opportunity, like here in Victoria, we probably get 2 or 3 games a week that if you really wanted to go to, you could.
Hmm.
But I think it's great that everyone's sort of in the one area. I mean, granted, there are games played in the Barossa Valley, which is an hour and a bit drive, away, so it's not sort of central-ish, but they also play the VFLW state representative game, and they also play the VFL state representative game. And I think things like that are wonderful because it exposes that next level to crowds and experiences that they wouldn't be able to have. And I think if you can do that, surely that's got to be a positive going forward.
Hmm.
Would I like to see it go to other states? Of course. I grew up in Sydney. Like I think, imagine if you could do a gather round in Sydney, it would be really difficult because you've got NG Stadium, you've got the SCG, you might be able to use ANZ Stadium or whatever it's with a core stadium, I think it's called now, that where the South Sydney Rabbitohs play. Maybe you might be able to use that. So you might have three Henson Park if they ever did it up properly. I think that was one stage Liam, who I'm on the Soaring to New Heights podcast, used to call it the Henson Health Hazard because the change rooms and facilities are pretty ordinary there for the players. But it'd be lovely to see it go to Sydney. When they build the new stadium up in Brisbane for the Olympics, maybe you take it there. And I think at one stage they did contemplate it being this travelling roadshow that goes around. I've seen a report that Tassie wants to throw his hat in the ring, to have a potential gather round in Tassie. So I like the concept. I think it gives great exposure to not only the top flight but also the next level, below that. And I think that's only a positive.
No, I'm 100% with you. I think it's nothing but a good thing just because it is kind of it does kind of make it hubbed a little bit. And I know a lot of people were like, well, with all the games in Victoria, basically gather round as every other round. And I kind of get that sentiment. So if they do it does become traveling. The only place I don't want it to go is Victoria, only just because of 10 teams already there. It's kind of already. I 100% agree with you. I love it just because of the fact is that if you're a footy lover, you could literally show up in Adelaide and see most of the games. Most of the games are all within because you've got two at Norwood. Again, the Barossas adds a little bit of difficulty to it, being able to see all of them. But the fact that there's one game over only 2 days. So it's not like half the games are up there and it becomes a logistical nightmare. But most of the games are at Adelaide Oval or Norwood, which is easy. They're both in Adelaide, relatively easy to get to. I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Everything that I've heard from the fans that have went said it's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere. Everybody gets along. I know you've got rivalries between some clubs, but supporters are getting along. They're having a lot of fun. You're seeing different supporters going to different games. Like, I mean, seeing a GWS Giants fan at a Richmond versus Port Adelaide game. It's a little weird, but it's cool because you're seeing footy fans, people that love this sport, all catching it. So I think it's an absolutely fantastic idea. I think the name's a little gimmicky, gather round. It's a little too much play on words there for me personally, but you can't just steal magic round from the NRL. So I get it. So is it a good thing? Absolutely. Do I see it traveling? Honestly, I don't. To be honest with you, I don't think I think they love because they have the sample grounds there. They have the Barossa at Adelaide Oval. I see gather round staying in Adelaide personally. I think they're gonna. I think they've kind of made this where it's like New South Wales, and Queensland kind of get that opening round thing, and I still think that needs a few tweaks a little bit. I think it would work if you could still do everybody instead of calling it open round, call it round one, but primarily focus on the northern states. then we just need to figure out something to get WA a little bit of an advantage in something. And then I think you kind of even the competition out. If you have gather round over in South Australia, you have kind of opening round slash round one up in the northern states. Just got to do something for WA because then I think you can kind of branch out and kind of fix some of the inequities in the fixture that most people don't like to talk about, but I mean, it's pretty obvious when you have 10 teams in Victoria, it does breed a little bit of an advantage there. So if you can find a way to kind of even up that advantage a little bit, I think it'd be perfect. Personally, like I said, I don't see Gather Round moving. I think the AFL loves that Gather Round has been such a success through Adelaide the first 2 years that I have a hard time seeing it leaving. But I mean, if Tassie can get the stadium built and can keep Launceston and Hobart Ovals to the point where they're happy with it, yeah, I think Tassie would be a place that you could do it. You have three ovals that'll work, so that's more than enough to be able to do it. The question will be is can they get it done? Will be that. So I'd be interesting to see. So, and then I always have fun when when I have a co-host that has a club that they are very passionate about, and as the Hawks man that you are, I gotta let you have some fun here. Tell me, as a Hawks fan, can they keep up this blistering form? Or are you worried they're peaking early?
I don't think they're peaking early. I think at the moment Hawthorn's probably about 70%. Just from watching, in terms of the way that games are playing out. They've been challenged, they've been pushed, but I don't think they've really broken out of sort of third or fourth gear. I think there's still so much more potential wise, and I think we're going to see more as the season goes on because we're still seeing Barras and Battle, who are only 4 games in to their career at Hawthorn, working with that back line, making sure it all works and how it all works. You got Mitch Lewis, you got Cal Shadir, who are both going to come back, in probably another 6 or 7 rounds. So, what will the forward line look like then when you bring them in? And can they keep up? Well, we take on Port in Gather Round, the last game of Gather Round, and I guess the final showcase of it. Then it's the Cats Easter Monday, and then after that,
Hmm.
it's Richmond. There's a game against Melbourne, so there's every chance that Hawthorn could be 7-0, 8-0, which sets up beautifully for the back end of the season because you can rest players. But yeah, I'm certainly the lid's still on. I'm a very
Hmm.
passionate supporter. I'm very optimistic, but as much as I'd love to say yes, I think Hawthorn are fit and firing, and they're going to be, right up there and I guess winning every game. It's not going to happen because that's just not how the competition works. Carlton did that round one against Richmond. Michael Voss came out and said, it'll be the first time that for some of these young blokes they get a win, and they'll have the same amount of wins against Richmond as Sam Walsh has. Well, Sam Walsh still has more wins than some of those young Carlton blokes because they didn't get the
Hmm.
win. So I think as supporters, we just got to keep the lid on it. It's nice. It's wonderful. We've bounced back a lot quicker than a lot of people thought, which is excellent.
Hmm.
But, you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch.
Nope, 100%. I mean, as somebody that kind of got burned with it last year as a Swans fan, because I know a lot of Swans fans were up and about early in the season. They had like that 4 game gap on second. And I remember telling some people, I said, I'm worried they're peaking too early. And I said that on a podcast. And somebody was like, what are you talking about? They're playing too good a footy too early. You cannot sustain that level of excellence that long. I've never seen anybody do it, not in footy, not with 24 rounds and then finals. It's just, and it showed. It reared its ugly head at the, so I suppose that's more one of the reasons is just because I went through that pain last year of up and about. I mean, you're dancing around like with the puffed out chest because 10-1, baby, 10-1. And then it all came crashing down as the season went on. So it'd be interesting. I agree with you. I still don't think Hawthorne's seen their best, and with still some players to come back into it. Again, long season. You still got some cracking games of footy. I'm fascinated to see how they go against Geelong on Easter Monday. I think that's going to be a heck of a game. That's going to be a fun one to watch. So, but I think I agree with you. They could their fixture set up nicely to get a nice little buffer early in the season. So it'll be fascinating to watch them go on. So that is all of the burning questions. We jump to my one of my fun parts of the round. Again, we're still early for power rankings, so those that are looking for that a little early, like I said, I want to make sure every team gets 5 games. So it's looking like round 6 will be when we'll have the premiere of the power rankings, just because then everybody will have played 5 games. So we'll have a little bit of form to go off of when it comes to it. So let's jump to the team of the round. Always my favorite, my homework for the weekend that I usually have. So let's jump right into it. Again, as a coach, we'll start on the defensive end. On the fullback line, we see Braden Maynard of the Collingwood Magpies, Melbourne's Stephen May, and Adelaide's Mitch Hinge will be our fullback line. In the halfback line, we see Carlton's Ollie Hollins, Sydney's Oliver Florent, and St. Kilda's Nasiah Wanganeen Miller. In the center, on the wings, we have Hugh McCluggage of the Brisbane Lions and Jace Burgoyne of the Port Adelaide Power. Through the center, we have Georgie Hewitt of the Carlton Blues, GWS's Tom Green, and Port Adelaide's Jason Horn Francis. In the ruck, Luke Jackson. I know he hurt his hamstring, but he kicked a goal and had a pretty impressive first 3 quarters of that game. Along the forward line, half forward line, we have Will Hayward of the Sydney Swans, Adelaide's Tex Walker, and the Western Bulldogs' Sean Darcy. At the full forward line, we see Sydney's Joel Armati, GWS's Jesse Hogan, and Adelaide's Riley Philthorpe. On the bench, on the defensive and defender on the bench is GWS's Lockie Whitfield. The ruck is Collingwood's Darcy Cameron. The midfielder is Luke Parker of the North Melbourne Kangaroos. And the forward, the old stodgy, that is Dangerfield pattern. Dangerfield will be the forward for the bench. So I know a lot of names really quickly. Thoughts on team of the week?
I think you've nailed it. I think there's probably not enough Hawthorn players, but we didn't play on the weekend, so that could
I
be a
was
given as
just
to
about to
why
say,
that
I'm
was
like,
the case.
this is one of the few times that I have somebody on, and I went, I timed him perfectly because it's the buy, so he can't go. Well, what about this Hawthorn player? What about?
No, I think you nailed it. I think it was great to see, Thilthorpe in the team. He obviously wasn't in a winning team because of what we spoke about already, but you have a look at what he was able to achieve on the weekend. I think he kicked 5 goals, had 8 score involvements, so he was definitely needed in there. And I think it's always interesting trying to come up with a team of the week because there's so many players who,
Oh yeah,
if you look at a team and there might be players who stand out for a particular reason. Maybe they might have played a shutdown role, or maybe they might have played a really good defensive role that got their team to win, and can be very hard to fit them in the team.
yeah,
Often they're the ones who are overlooked because we look at the ones with the
yeah.
scoring prowess or the ones who, are able to turn it on. But I think you did a fantastic job with that team.
I know some Swans fans are going to be like, Coach, why didn't you get Tommy McCartan in there for what he did with Nick Larkey? Considering Nick Larkey didn't kick a single goal until about 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Larkey kicked two. That was one of those I wanted to get Tommy McCartan in there, but Stephen May and Mitch Hinge both had fantastic games for them. They had a little bit more to deal with than Tommy McCartan did in that game, especially in the third and fourth quarters. First half, Tommy McCartan was probably one of the reasons why North didn't get on a run, because they kept bombing it in, and McCartan would get the intercept mark or would keep Larkey from intercept from marking it, and then it would lead to free balls. So that was one. Like, I so wanted to get Tommy McCartan in there, just couldn't find a way to get him in there, just because I think Stephen May and Mitch Hinge had really good games, so I can't deny them. And Braden Maynard kicks a goal, as I tell everybody. Goals, my defenders, is instantly going to give you a perfect shot of making it in, just because it's not something that happens very often. So let's jump to it. That is done with team of the week. Let's jump to it. I know we're early. There's still injury reports and all that, but let's jump to our tips. I'm interested because there's some absolute ripping games of football. I'm interested to see what you think on this one. We'll jump to it. Thursday night footy, opening game of Gather Round, and we are treated to a doozy as the Adelaide Crows host the Geelong Cats at the Adelaide Oval. Crows, Cats, who do you like?
Yeah, I think looking at this one, you have to pick the Crows. I think the Cats not playing at Kidinia Park. I think the Crows get the chocolates. They're playing at home, and I think the three-pronged tools will just be too much, especially with Jack Henry out for what looks like about a month with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, definitely one of those that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. So I'm going to tip the Crows in this one again. They play so well at home. Cats, they're still just something just the tiniest bit off on them. Again, yeah, I know they beat Melbourne, but they're still just not where I think they should be. So Crows for me on this one. This one's going to be difficult for me. Adelaide Oval, Friday night footy, Collingwood v Sydney. My turn to tip, and I'm going to pull the old normally what I do. I'm going to do the win either way. I'm going to tip the Pies in this one only because again, Sydney still dealing with some injury things, still not at their top side. Collingwood starting to find form, starting to get rolling. If this game was at the SCG, I'd tip Sydney. But because it's not at the SCG, I know the Pies fans will travel. I'm going to tip Collingwood in this one, but Sydney's going to be in this one. I have a feeling they're going to be in this one to the fourth quarter. I just think the Pies, Nick Dacos, and some of the firepower of Collingwood may just be a tiny bit too much.
Yeah, I'm picking the Swans. No De Goey, no Schultz for Collingwood. I think that's going to play a big role and have a big impact on Collingwood because if you can shut Dacos down, and we know James Jordan will be going straight to Nick at
Hmm.
the very first bounce and won't leave his side until the full time siren. I can see the Swans getting the chocolates and fingers crossed for Joel Amati. He loves playing at the Adelaide Oval. Last time he was there, he kicked a nice little bag, so he might be looking at it as another opportunity to kick another nine.
Still the running joke. Did John Longmire pull him so he wouldn't kick 10? No, and I know they asked John that later, and he's like, no, he's like he just came off for regular rotations, and we just didn't get him back on because the game was pretty much over at the time. So, no, I really hope you're right. Again, DeGoey's been one of those that I don't think he's been as big an impact for Collingwood as I think a lot of people are expecting. Schultz is probably the bigger loss just because of the small forwards. He's probably been the most damaging. So I agree with you. Just the outs for Sydney still kind of concern me with the firepower that they have. Again, the question will be is can Jordan stay with Nick Dacos? Again, Nick Dacos is a different animal than some of the scalps, shall we say, that James Jordan has. I mean, when you take out Lockie Neal, you literally totally stifle Caleb Sarong. But Nick Dacos is just such a different animal. It's going to be fun to watch that one. I'm fascinated to see how James E. Jordan goes because he's one of those. Despite the tag, he can still make an impact on the game. So it'll be fun to watch that one. An interesting one up at the Barossa. This is intriguing to me. North Melbourne versus the Gold Coast Suns. I'm hearing already people going, "This is going to be a massacre. Gold Coast is going to win this one by 90." I don't know what it is. Gold Coast, I think, is going to win it. But I have a feeling North's going to pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and this is going to be a competitive game. This is the game I would worry if I'm a Gold Coast Suns fan because this is one of those, nobody's got any expectations on North, and that could be sometimes the most dangerous team. Gonna tip Gold Coast, but I think I think North is much more competitive than they were against the Swans.
I can see. I can see North putting up a bit more of a fight, but I think the Suns' power up forward is just going to be far too much because you look at that North Melbourne backline, Griffin Logue, you look at Aiden Core, Charlie Comben, and you then compare it to Jed Walter. You got the King brother, and then you've got Ethan Reed, and I think those three boys would be licking their lips, thinking that this might be our time to get a fill up.
Now we'll have to see. Like I said, it's gonna be interesting. The midfield battle is how LDU, Luke Parker, Sheasel, whoever's through the middle against Anderson, Miller, and that midfield is going to be fascinating to watch. I'm interested. The next one, Carlton v the West Coast Eagles, Adelaide Oval. Seriously, like I know this is kind of late on this one, but why aren't these games switched and having Carlton up with Carlton West Coast but the Barassa? Just honestly, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Um, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I think in this one, I'm cheering. Well, I'm cheering for West Coast because West Coast took Hawthorn's first round pick, and we've got Carlton's. So if West Coast are able to knock Carlton off somehow, that means Hawthorn's pick could be, pick two by the end of this weekend. No, in all seriousness, I think if you have a look at it, I don't think you can pick West Coast. I know that they put in a pretty good performance against the Lions, when they were really plucky and took it to them, but I don't see them being able to trouble Carlton this week. And I think with all that went on with Oscar Allen, I don't think that there's probably going to be I guess a bit of disharmony in the group for probably a couple of weeks as they sort of try and work around that. And I think that's probably going to be another downfall for them. And yeah, I can see Carlton getting the points this weekend.
Yeah, this is one of those. If you're a Carlton fan, you're going, thank you. Please don't mess it up. Please don't mess it up. After the Richmond debacle, I don't think Voss and Carlton will take West Coast lightly, like I think they did with Richmond. This is the perfect little. This is the table setter. This gets us kind of going. Maybe can right the ship. Carlton should win this, but again, I don't know because I also thought the same thing against Richmond. So we'll have to see. Should they? Yes. Will they? Debatable. Tipping Carlton, but oh man, is that going to make the Carlton faithful pretty steamed if they somehow find a way to drop this one as well. So not trying to manifest it. We'll touch wood on that. Okay, over to Norwood Oval as the Western Bulldogs host the Brisbane Lions. How Norwood pulled this game, I want to know because wow, is this going? They are going to be treated. The Norwood faithful are going to be treated to an incredible game of football on this one. I'm going to tip Brizzy. Brisbane just too good, too strong. Western Bulldogs again, still with some outs that I think are still hurt them. Brisbane too good. Bulldogs are pesky. I think they'll be in it, but the Lions just too much class.
Yeah, I think the Lions get the points. It'll be fascinating to watch it because Norwood, the boundaries at
It's
Norwood
like
are
Geelong. It's like
really, really,
Geelong skinny.
yeah, really skinny. So it'll be a really interesting watch, I guess, to see how that plays out because I think the Dogs will like it that it's closer and more in tight, whereas the Lions would probably want it to be a bit more spacious. And it's going to be a great watch to watch when you see Sam Darcy going up against Harris Andrews, because
Hmm.
that in itself is going to be a fascinating watch.
Either that or Jack Payne would be. Do they want Harris Andrews free to be able to intercept Mark? Will Jack Payne get that? It's interesting how I'm interested to see how Fagan decides to handle Sam Darcy because again he's been an absolute monster this early part of the year. Again, Brisbane a little bit too good. That's going to be a fun one to watch. Back to the Adelaide Oval as a game that has significantly decreased since the start of the season when it comes to intrigue for some as the Melbourne Demons take on the Essendon Bombers at the Adelaide Oval. Man, this is another one that I'm not sure who to tip because Melbourne's form has been atrocious. Essendon's form has been atrocious, but Essendon's got a win and played a little bit better in that game against Port, but they're coming off a bye. Melbourne played well, kind of to start the season, but have had a few absolute stinkers. I'm gonna tip Essendon in this one, but I have no confidence because this is a Melbourne team again on their day could be quite a difficult out, and Essendon can be quite horrible defensively. So I'm interested to see which one bends. Gonna tip Bombers, but yeah, I think the D surprisingly could have a little bit of confidence going into this game against a Swiss cheese defense that is the Essendon Bombers at times.
Yeah, I think both of them, their defense at the moment is just not great. It's going to be a close encounter. That's certainly for sure. I think I probably trust the Bombers just slightly more than Melbourne, purely for the fact that I've seen the Bombers put in a really good performance against Port, really close game against Hawthorn. Whereas if you look at Melbourne, they got thumped by North Melbourne. I think that still just sits in the back of the mind when I'm thinking about tipping this one.
Totally get it. So back up to the Barossa Valley as we see Richmond v Fremantle. Again, Fremantle must be licking their chops in this opportunity to continue to right the ship. Again, Luke Jackson out. Do we see a Sean Darcy come in? That'll be fascinating to see. Fremantle in this one, but again, this is a pesky Richmond team. You just never know. Tipping Fremantle, I think Richmond still a watch.
Yeah, I think, watching this one, I don't think you can pick Richmond. I think they might be plucky. They'll certainly try and be in it for as long as they can. But I think if we saw what Freo were able to perform on Sunday when they played against the Dogs, and they're able to perform it again this Sunday. I think they'll easily be able to overrun the Tigers in the last half.
Definitely for sure. We jump to a game that has taken on a lot of intrigue. And if you're people at the Norwood Oval, you are licking your chops. The two games that you get are both incredible. As the second game at Norwood sees St. Kilda and GWS, a fascinating one on this one. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, taking the Giants. I know that the Saints have really surprised everyone, as we said. St Kilda sort of everyone said would probably a bottom four team, but I think the Giants have just got far too much star power. You look at that forward line. You've got Cadman, you've got Green, you've got Hogan, and then you go the other way and you have a look at the back line, and you've got Taylor, you've got Buckley, you've got Iden, you've got Whitfield, and yeah, I can see the Giants getting another win.
Yeah, I think the Giants win this one. It'll be fat. It'll be fascinating to see will St. Kilda's ball movement be stifled a little bit at Norwood again? The skinny oval will that affect them? How does the tsunami handle the smaller ground? I think last year didn't they play Hawthorne at Norwood last year?
That was 2 years ago.
Okay, all right, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it'd be interesting. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see how the tsunami handles the skinny ground, the skinny long ground. Will be fascinating to see how that goes. Again, this is I think a surprisingly good one. GWS win it, but I think St. Kilda is going to be up and about. I'm fascinated to see what Ross Lyon pulls out in this one, and to end the round, your beloved Hawthorn Hawks get the chance to spoil the hometown team Port Adelaide on their home ground. Fascinating one, this one. Head versus heart, sir. Hawks, Port. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm tipping my beloved Hawks in the Ken Hinkley rematch after he told Ginnivan he wouldn't be flying anywhere. And look, I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing Guinea late in the fourth quarter boot one and maybe put his flying wings on and do maybe a little half a lap around Adelaide Oval as they get ready to reset after a goal. But no, I just think from watching what the Hawks have been able to do over the first 4 weeks, I think they're just going to have far too much firepower. And the midfield battle will be fascinating. Rosie, Butters, Horn Francis against Day, Newcomb, Warple coming back, Nash. So it'll be a scintillating clash in terms of the midfield. But yeah, I think my Hawks get the chocolates.
Yeah, and surprisingly, a fascinating ruck battle in Lloyd Meek versus Jordan Sweet. Jordan Sweet's been playing some pretty good football in the ruck, so it'd be fascinating to see him going up against the big Lloyd Meek. I'm with you. I'm going to tip Hawthorne, but Port, for some weird reason, sometimes coming off a bad loss, sometimes has that kick in that next game. So as a Hawthorne supporter, that would be my one worry is maybe Kenny Hinkley gets him up and about because they get this showcase game, last game of the round on the Adelaide Oval. Again, home field advantage. Basically, it'll be fascinating. I agree with you. Hawks, I think a little too much class, but this would be one I would circle as keep an eye out on Port because for some weird reason, sometimes they find a way to pull one out of a body cavity. I can't say on the podcast sometimes, so we'll have to see. So that'd be fascinating one for sure to end gather around. Well, Tim, that is it. That is all 9 games tipped. Yes, we get 9 games now. Now that the first section of buys after the opening round is through us on that. Always so much fun to sit here and talk. So I want to give you the opportunity before we say goodbye to kind of tell us how things are going. Talking Hawks, soaring to new heights, everything when it comes to the Hawks. You guys cover again fantastic work that you do. I know Liam and I have chatted a few times on the podcast when it comes to soaring to new heights in the women's part, but haven't really had a chance to talk to him about the Talking Hawks section of the podcast where you talk about the men's team. So just a little bit of how things are going over in Hawkland when it comes to Talking Hawks and soaring to new heights.
Yeah, things are going really well. So, Talking Hawks, we do our 6 point podcasts, which is a bit of a recap over the previous game. So that's going gangbusters at the moment, which was wonderful. We get down to the main training session and ask Sam Mitchell some questions, which is always great. It's always nice to be able to ask some questions from, I guess, a fan perspective rather than a generalized media perspective, because there's always a different slant
Mhm.
or opinion with that. And we've got some interviews that we've had recently. So we had Harry Morrison, we had Finn McGuinness, and we've had Blake Hardwick, and all three of them have started the season off really well. So we had them come onto the podcast and guess, discuss the season and how much things have changed. This time last year it was 0-3, and I guess the mood wasn't as buoyant as it is right now. And at the moment, they're seeing the labours of their hard work over the last 24 months under the reign of Sam Mitchell as head coach. So, yeah, Talking Hawks is going really well. Soaring to new heights. We'll be starting up, Liam will be starting up the VFLW coverage for Box Hill, and that'll start up very, very soon after they have the representative game. And then, yeah, I saw a post from one of the Hawthorn AFLW players from Tamara Smith saying that it's about 5 weeks until the preseason starts up officially for the team. So we'll have some coverage of that as well.
Awesome, awesome. I know you guys do yeoman's work over there. It's always fantastic. I try to keep track of it as much as I possibly can with everything going on. Like I said, now that all of the competitions that I keep track of are on, as I was showing Tim previously, I have a sticky note with all of the games that happened this weekend, and he kind of went, had the wide-eyed emoji because, like I said, again, I must be crazy because I'm trying to keep track of 5 different competitions and the 6 still to come with VFLW having gotten started. Excuse me, having not gotten started yet, there's a little less footy to have to deal with, but it's the plight of the podcaster that covers both state league and the AFL is that I have a few games that I have to keep track of, so it's always fun. So that's gonna do it for the podcast again. Tim, thank you so much for hopping on. I know you haven't been on the podcast in a while, and it was truly great to get you back on the podcast and have a good old fashioned footy chat.
Thank you very much for inviting me on, Donny. As I said, it's always great to talk to someone who's got as much passion as you do, and keep up the good work.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, keep track of it. More coverage. We've got state league coverages, Sandful and Waffle reviews of the first rounds of footy are coming up very soon. Keep an eye out on that. And as usual, more AFL coverage and anything to do with football. So thank you very much. And we will be back with more footy coverage very soon.